look, I wanted to address this this whole topic of associate practice, and there's people who have contacted us with questions, and they're in practice at the moment. So there's some that I'll field from them, the absent people who will get a copy of this, and then there's those who obviously are present who feel free to put your questions. Probably let's do it into the chat box, so we can sort it as we go through. I've sort of got a little bit of an agenda, but I want to keep it fluid to allow for addressing whatever is the most topical and highest of interest for you guys, and particularly the people being present. So I guess the thing is, and I'll just flick it across here into a more visual format, and that is so entitled "The Skipper Your Practice" with a nautical theme in mind, and the byline being with associates in control. And for a lot of, I mean, what comes up for you when you see that? Maybe I'll just check in with you on that. When you see associates are in control, is that like the inmates are running the asylum, or is that sort of like a normal thing for you? Any comment on that?
I actually could see there's a little bit of I think initial benefits to it, because they probably maybe have a bunch of ideas in their head and they're full of energy to want to maybe get out there and try something. If you've got that type of associate who wants a bit of flexibility to run, and then that's kind of great. Say, well, what are your ideas, what you want to do, and you can be there to kind of support them along, and then they're going to see what's win and what's not, and then what's not. If something is working that you're not aware of, could be okay, great. They're at least getting some wins in the basket, maybe getting some initial people themselves, and then after that, everything becomes a coaching opportunity. So there's that component. I think with time they'll learn that like anybody, the more you know, the less you know, and they'll be hopefully coming back to you for some support, right? Yeah. That's my initial thoughts with it on that end.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's value at all levels. We all come with our superpowers, and often in associate practice, they come up from the most unlikely positions. So, the new recruit could just be really wow it and have an incredible power in a certain area. So it's important to be recognize that we've got a great resource there with our practice and our practice team, including particularly, say, our associates. So, but one of the things, like with any relationship that you care to look at, relationships aren't a static line. I mean, in fact, we'll probably look at the ocean on this one. It's not a static thing. It's got ruffles on it, ripples on it. It's got waves on it. It's got cyclones and storms on it. And I think within a relationship, we have a challenge in that we've got two individuals going in a somewhat parallel direction, but there's never a total, because we are different. We're different individuals. We see things differently, and so that direction could be converging, it could be diverging, and we all have our true north, but the true norths aren't the same. And I think this is something that we maybe overlook when it comes to associate practice, and the stats. I don't know, stats get bounded around, and I think some people like to use the word 7 because it sticks, but 67%, so they say, of associate practices end in failure or fail. But I don't know whether that's actually true, because I think it's more like all associate practices are successful. I'd rather frame it from that position. Now, I think that we have people coming into practices for a certain reason, and we've had associates join us for 3 months, and then they found that wasn't quite for them, or we found that we weren't quite for them. So it's sort of like, well, they weren't quite right for us. But we've taken a learning from it. We've taken a a gift from it, which is the reason. So let's look at it from the framework that every single person comes into our life for a reason. Everyone comes into our life for a reason. If we just accept that there's no mistakes, it is all perfect. There is, as we talked earlier about COVID, the silver lining of that, there's a reason for it. So if people come into our life for a reason, and some of them, and well, all of them do, but some of them stay for a while, and so they come in for a season, and so they might live out a certain part of their life, a certain chapter of their life, a certain season of their life with us. And so some people might join us, as associates have, with in their retirement years almost, in sort of the golden years. Others join us in their fledgling years. Others join us in their sort of baby years, where they come in and out and they have bubs. And so there's a season there too that people will come, but they all bring a reason, and we bring a reason to it as well. And then I would say there is a lifetime. Right? So we could have a lifetime there where people join us and they just hang around, we find it really cool. And one of our associates has been with us for 25 years. So, I guess that's a reasonable time frame. So, and Sally's a really high producer. She loves it. She contributes really well. It's, she's had 2 kids and they're now growing up, and that's just the journey that we've been on. And we had her birthday at our place the other day, and her parents are still around. They live on the coast, and so it's all part of the family. So there's that side of it too. That's a lifetime relationship, and it's very close. So I think if we can have this recognition that there's no such thing as failure within a relationship. There's a gift in every relationship. Right, and we're dealing with these relationships with our associates. So a lot of chiros say, in fact, I asked the ones who couldn't be here if they wanted to submit a question, and one of them, well, actually 2 of them, said, "Well, I'm just afraid to even engage in it because I hear too many horror stories." But then, what I would say to that is that. And they'll be getting the recording of this. So, what I would say to you is that, look, there's horror stories everywhere if you care to look for it, but you still drive a car even though there's horror stories. You'll still go to a public place even though you hear horror stories. You'll still engage in a relationship with, for a lifelong relationship or whatever the relationship happens to be, even though you hear of horror stories. Everything from Tinder to 100 years together. I mean, it's still risk. So there's risk in all. So it's really not an excuse not to engage in an associate relationship. The associate relationship will give us a good way to find out some distinctions on our reasons, a passage of a season, and maybe even a relationship of a lifetime. And I would suggest that most of the relationships that we have within our associates, even long after they've gone, are still lifetime things. So anyway, so let's just put some discussion to that. Firstly, is that something that you get, or do you disagree with that, or how does that work for you? And what's been your experience of the reason, season, and lifetime thing?
For me, I usually have mostly new grads, and there's a lot of growth in those, say, 3 years that they're with us, or sometimes it's 2 years, sometimes it's 6 years. And I feel like I got a lot of really good support when I started as a new grad, and I feel like it's paying it forward. It feels like it's a way to help the profession be better, or at least, to a certain standard. And it's a way to, the seasons, I guess, like kind of everyone's on their own journeys and paths, and certainly feels like that to me, like that people, they all come in with different expectations, and they'll reach them in certain time frames and they're ready to move on to the next stage of growth, if that's by themselves or they want a new city, a new experience, and a new phase of life because they're single and looking, or who knows, So it just depends on. Yeah, but totally, that's been my experience with over the last 9 years. We've had about nine or 10 associates across everywhere. We've got 6 in the team right now. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great. So what you're saying, David, is that the expectations are critical. And we'll look at that too, and that the reason could be growth. The reason could be for the first stage, getting out of college. They want to grow. They want to learn. They want to develop. And so, what I'm angling here is that we need to find out what our expectations are relative to this, because some chiropractors say, well, I'm ready to slow down. I don't want to spend much time in the practice. I just want someone to come in and see the practice members. That's not necessarily going to work too well to get a junior in, because juniors are hungry. They want to grow. They want to learn. They want to develop. And so that's probably a wrong choice for associates, right? So if we all right, so that's a lower level. Who's got an associate there, or have associate story around the season? So a chapter of life. So it's probably about 3 or 4 years. But yeah, Michael, you have.
I did, sure. I mean, I probably had 2 very short seasons, or short, not even a season, reasons. And then one who stuck around for a season, and could have came in for a much longer season, and obviously, went away. But allowed me to get out of the large multidisciplinary clinic I was in. I can't say, for me, it saved up time for me to work on the business and be able to get me out and get my own clinic in another, where I could have full control of the money and the staffing and actually grow. So when I look at the value of, let's say how much money I made on that to support the business, it wasn't like, I don't know, it was a very small amount really in the end after you pay him and paid all the other bills, but it freed me up some time. It got me the opportunity to get the loans I needed to open up in the new place, and he could have come along with me, and then 6 months of planning, and 3 weeks before, he just dropped a big bomb on me and didn't come. And that was a big hit. With
There was a reason within the season, right?
Yeah. So we could go into the details of that. It's not worth it. And then I tried to bring in another person, and lots of good training, and it was the oddest thing. He went through a personal life thing, and but he had totally said he loved working here. He wouldn't want to work with anybody else but me. He loved all the training, but he had to did a month and a half of training, and then I was ready to let him loose and get him going. And I'm not sure if he needed more financial support up front. I had a retainer there for him, a smaller retainer, about $500. But he was getting a huge amount of training from me, especially in my technique, and which is quite valuable. And the personal thing got in his way, and he left and just shut down. So he didn't want to be a chiropractor anymore. He was amazed how passionate I was, and he couldn't understand why he wasn't. So, but he was really good practitioner, really nice guy, had great skills, and I don't know what to say about it. And then he ended up coming back and working in the city for another chiropractor and advertising the technique I had. So a year later, and I just I don't know. I gotta say, I felt used a bit, Mark.
Okay. Yeah.
Definitely, there's been benefits, and I guess it just goes. I freed up some time in that other situation with the new young guy. I got some training processes in place, and I realized I just wasn't ready yet. Still, again, I needed to focus on myself.
That's nice. It's I was putting down here unconditional, because often we have expectations of return that don't match the expectations of return or even contribution of the associate. And I think it's important to get over our need to have, what's it say? I would preface this, but it's important to protect your IP.
Yeah.
But at the same time, get over our need to have people go with the expectations we have of them based on our values, because often they're very different, and there's generational gaps, there's cultural gaps, there's a whole bunch of different gaps there that there's no picking ahead of time. And I think it's a great example, Michael, of that the business and the control of business was the reason that you were in there for a season in that particular scenario, and then you took in someone who went with a reason, was growth and their own personal growth, and sounds like a fairly sort of an abstract sort of misguided growth, or not directed growth. So that I think it's important to be unconditional with that sort of stuff, to say, well, I was able to serve the purpose of allowing this chap to find whatever he needed to find.
Yep.
So no, nice. And then Ginger, you've got probably a lifetime story there.
Yeah, I'm having a really good experience right now with my current associate. He's finally come home to Colorado, and he's so happy. And I asked him just last month, what are your 5-year plans? Where do we want to go with this? And he said, I want to be right where I am. I'm so happy. And you're so good at the business end of it. And I don't want to do any of that. I just want to keep adjusting people. And this is exactly what I've wanted my entire career. He came to me after already practicing for 15 years around the world, and finally decided that he really needed to come home to Colorado. But excuse me, today I had an interesting conversation. A chiropractor came to visit me, and Mark, you may know about her. She was the one who was working for Jack when he was having all of his issues. She came to me and asked, how do I know if I'm ready for an associate? And we had a 2-hour conversation about the thoughts you need to have and what you need to look for and how do you know, and it's a complicated situation. How do you know that that's the next step for your practice?
Absolutely. It's it's like, how do you know that a relationship you're entering into?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just life in general. Like, how do you know if you're in love, or how do you know if that's the school you want to go to, or there's so many different ways to approach growth.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think if we can look at our expectations from this position, that they're our expectations, and they may or may not bear out in a relationship, because other people have their own expectations, and it's the expectations that are unknown, I think, that are the critical ones. The ones that are known that can be shared. It's just the expectations so deep that you wouldn't even think about expressing it, because of course that's what everyone thinks, and it's like, oh no, not really. That's what I think. So maybe the third category then could be those who just love what they do. And they're there for a lifetime. They're there because they love it. They're not there to have control. They're not there to make a business. They're simply there because they love adjusting, they love working with people, and they will grow in accordance with that, but they're not there to grow. They're very happy to do what they've always done. They don't have to be different, and they're very happy to share the love. So maybe if we looked at it from those viewpoints. Now, I just want to check on who's on the iPhone.
Neil.
Liam.
Neil.
Oh, Neil.
Neil.
Hi, Neil. Hi, Neil. Great to have you. So as a person who's been in the field for a long time, and a great time, what's your viewpoint here on the fact that, firstly, a vast majority of associateships are said to fail, but really they're not failing. They're simply giving us some opportunities to learn and to develop ourselves. And even though, like as Michael was talking, they might be seen to be screwing us over or taking our stuff, or taking our practice down the road or whatever, what is it that you've had in your experiences with your associates who that could be seen to be either a reason, a season, or a lifetime? You just take your pick of which one.
Well, I sympathise, Michael. I really do. It reminds me of the situations I've had where you invest an enormous amount of time, effort, energy, IP, a lots of, like decades of tricks and ideas and so on. And also you hope that if you're successful yourself, you hope that by observing what you do, how you interact with patients, clients, whatever you want to call them, that will kind of have an osmotic rub-off effect, and that they will kind of get it, if you like, in terms of understanding that doing what we do is not just about technique, and it's not just about schedules of care and things like that. It's the way we treat our patients and our clients that makes a huge difference, and you hope that will rub off. But I'm afraid I haven't got any great positive stories in terms of associates staying, because I don't know, a bit like you, I've had the same sort of experience on a number of occasions. It's like, oh, gee, this is really driving me nuts. A lot of effort expended, but nothing to show at the end of it. Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah. So I presume I've only got audio and no video here.
No video, so we can't see the angst on your face, no. But that's okay.
I'll see if I can get something up.
I think the important thing is, look for that.
There he is.
Oh, there we go.
Yep.
Look for that silver lining. Because there is, the point we're making there, I think you were sort of in and out on that one, Neil, is that it is about being unconditional, and that there's a point of gift in every single situation. Everything we have. We talked about COVID at the beginning there, and the gift in that. So when we start to count on the blessings that we're receiving, we actually tend to manifest more. And we start to talk in that way, we'll actually pull in more of the same. So I can think of some situations with some associates who are just pretty weird. And we learned from that, and we grew from it. Therefore, it was the reframe on that was amazing. The great little gifts that these people gave us.
Right.
So I think if we can look at the fact that we are in a relationship and we're entering into it, not knowing what the outcomes are going to be, having some desire around the outcomes, and being unconditional about it, so that we can flow with it and allow our expectations to reveal themselves as we go through it. It's a really useful frame to take on board. So if we were then to look at how we might structure that, and this will be very familiar to most of you actually, but not so much those who are not present. I want to look at every activity we do, and as a human being, has a filter involved. That filter happens to be our brain. And so the filter of the brain dictates the way in which we fire, and the way in which we fire then dictates our neurological preferences and our hence our behaviors and our actions. And so that when we're, as an individual, we have this brain that is in two halves, and right and left, and front and back. So we've got the divisions such as that. So that gives us 4 quadrants of area of neurological potential and of function. So within that, then, as a human being, we do know that the right side of the brain has tendency towards the future and towards the big picture and connecting with people, where the left side of the brain likes to be linear and logical and so forth. And so, whilst we can have words over here, the expression of the words is over there. So there's a trade across there between the sides of the brain. So it's not this big barrier in the middle where neither twain shall meet. Although when we're dealing with a lot of mechanistic systems, one would think that that the left side of the brain is is the academic, and the right is the artist, and we can't mix the two. Well, in fact, what happens is that we are mixing the two constantly, And that gives us this beautiful balance of ideas on the right side of the brain feeding across into the logic of the left side of the brain. And the logic of the left side of the brain feeding across into the delivery of the right side of the brain, the artistry and the being the artisan and so forth of that right posterior part of the brain. And that fires up into the left frontal area, which allows for expansion and to see things in new ways, reinvent things, put it into a different context, and that fires it back across into the ideas area, which gets all excited about it and says, woohoo, you know, and so it fires it back here. So that's what we call the innate model. It's you know, that's the innate model on a thumbnail, but it's a personal processing of data. Now, let's now look at this in the context of relationships. So a relationship, or associate practice, is a relationship, right? So in fact, your practice is a relationship. All our practices are a group of people doing their thing. So this relationship then has a certain structure to it, right? So we take this relationship and we look at how it is that we work together, and we do find there's differences. So we find that there's certain parts of this relationship that are just that come in here, and I'll just put in some figures here. We've got these 4 quadrants, which we call quadrant 1, 2, 3, and 4, and they're opposite each other. And the quadrant 1 then is an area. In fact, I'll just click it on down one. We'll get it there. In terms of the business, is your area of attraction, right? So the quadrant 1 part is looking out into the future and what's possible, right? So, and it drags in from the future ideas and potentialities. And so that's the area of being attractive. This is where we gain an associate in the practice, where we're being attractive to that associate. When they come and they interview us, if they're smart, often we think we're interviewing them, but they should be interviewing us. Well, you've had several of those experiences just lately, right, Ginger?
Yes.
Yeah. So, you know, there's an attraction there. You know, it's like, you know, when Ginger did an ad for the associate, then what'd you do? You went out into the park and...
Yep, I did a video and said, hey, look at this beautiful place that I live. Who wouldn't want to work here? Come on, reach out. Let me know if you want to join us. And then I did a second video where I did a 15-second interview of everybody on my staff. And they all said why they liked working for me. And that's what we put on our, we have a hidden page on our website just for applicants. Mm-hmm. And those videos are on there to attract new people.
Yeah, it was beautiful. And the one with the speech on it, and it was like testimonials of what a wonderful place it is to work here. So that appealed to this area. Right? So, mm-hmm. And then you sort of created some FOMO with it too. And the FOMO, you actually, now before you did that, you went through some of the logistics, some of the things that we have, right? What the practice is about. And then with the FOMO, which was really cool, I don't know, say they're all sitting around here. And then there's this chair.
Yeah.
Yeah. And on the chair it had this is your seat, isn't it?
It said you, we taped a piece of paper to the chair and it said you with a question mark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was so cool. And so, you know, that really creates FOMO for people. It's like, oh, I'm missing out on this, you know. There's these lovely people all here saying, you know, well, they love working there or working in the group. And then there's this empty chair. So, you know, so in other words, what that was doing was there to create attraction into the practice, right? So this is, there's 2 levels of this. And I think we might just make that artwork away for a sec. The attraction is in 2 forms. One is to harvest and one is to cultivate. Right, so the harvest, it was what Ginger was doing there. It was like harvesting people, just finding out who's ready to bite. You know, who's, be it, you know, harvesting in the sea, be it harvesting on the land. You wait for the crops to be there, and then you go out and grab them, right? So that you grab the fruit, you grab the grain, you grab the animals or the fish or whatever it is. So that's a valid mechanism, and I think you've given a great example there of how you can do that using a couple of simple videos, and you know, the one that you did with the flat irons in the background and Boulder was, you know, really, really cool too. Just gave that extended appeal. I mean, in Melbourne, you know, you could do it with everyone walking around with masks and say, well, you know, the safest place on the planet or something. I don't know, but anyway. But the other side of that though is to cultivate. Now, this is a long-term strategy. Right? Cultivation is looking way out into the future and saying, how can we draw a person towards us? And so, like, for example, in our experience, we've had over 100 people become chiropractors through our practice, or practices now we've had. And with that, we're always on the lookout for a reason for a person to start to think about them becoming a chiropractor. Now, just think about it. If you just put one person into the profession a year, you know, you'd have an endless supply of people who are accustomed to your practice and to your style, and you might have, you know, mentored them a little bit along the way, who are ready to come back into the practice and spend a few years there as they develop, and maybe spend a lifetime. So it's long term, and often we tend to think short term. We often tend to think, you know, where can I get an associate, right? This is where we ask, how can I cultivate an associate? Right, so we want to be able to look at people and just plant these seeds. Now, you know, if you wanted something shorter term, hang out with the students, hang out with chiropractic students, and you know, shout them beer and pizza. They'll, you know, that's the quickest way probably to get to their center, you know. But if you can just talk with them, associate with them, connect with them, shout them to a seminar, do that sort of stuff without conditions. You know, it's just unconditional. It's like the farmer throwing out seeds. You know, some of them will take, some of them won't. But you can't be conditional about it. You know, because I've showed you the you know, $1,700 worth of seminars, you should come work with me. No, it's not about that. It's simply, you know, hey, this is a you've got potential here. Resistance is futile. Just know
the Borg.
And I know that you're only 2 years old right now, but that's okay. You know? Well, you know, so that's how that flows. I mean, I've taken newborn babies for virtually straight out of the womb, and been called in to adjust them, and you know, made comment about, oh, look at these fingers, they're amazing. You are going to be such an incredible chiropractor when you grow up. You know, that sort of thing. And their mums and dads still remember that. You know, and a couple of them, in fact, only 3 of them offhand, are now chiropractors.
Yeah.
So, you know, so don't underestimate the power of planting ideas, right? So, you know, the world is built on ideas, you know, and it just takes one little idea falling in fertile soil, and you have a potential chiropractor there, maybe a potential leader of the profession, who, you know, beyond consideration about whether they're going to come and work with you or not, you know, they are there to contribute to humanity through the vehicle that we use called chiropractic. So, you know, that's...
You know, can I add a little something there, Mark?
Sure.
When I was at Palmer, there was an Adopt a Doc program.
Mm-hmm.
And each trimester got a chiropractor that came in once a trimester. And often the guy who came to our class would, like, one time he came in and spoke at our philosophy class. Another time he got a keg and we all hung out at the student center and everybody drank beer and hung out with him. And I think he got several associates from our class. Mm-hmm. Yep. And he once a trimester, he would show up at Palmer and talk to us. about what it is to be in practice and what real life looks like. And I mean, I didn't have any interest to working for him, but I still remember he had an impact on me, even though I didn't want to work for him.
Yes. Yeah, that's so great. And that's really interesting, that point you bring up there, because it's not so much, well, it could well be the person that you're mentoring or that you're targeting and so forth, or even the group in this case that you're speaking to. But the thing on that is they have friends and they talk because you become then a household word for them. And so,
right.
so when their friend happens to be coming to Boulder in your case, or Sydney, or Melbourne, or Auckland, Wellington, in the case of us guys here at the moment, they will look us up. Well, I'm a friend of such and such, and they said that, they heard you speak and blah, blah, blah. So using your voice is a huge part of attraction, right? So as well as obviously your presence, but look at how you can use your voice to get out there more, right? To have influence. And for me, it's, I've used this sort of medium and, do videos and stuff like that. And it's not to get associates into practice. So we have people who want to become associates with us. There's one in the office yesterday. So, they come in and we do a selection with them over time. But it is about being attractive, right? So we've got to be attractive, and that allows then people to come towards us. So then to look at this at the next level, and that is being organized, right? Nurturing people, having people come in and to feel comfortable with it when they're with us. So this would be, in terms of an associate, the onboarding. So having a training program. So making sure that you've got all the ducks in a row so that the associate can come in. They have things that they will know. By the time they've gone through them, it's like a checklist. They'll know what to do. And of course, having the systems in place, and all the procedures and the protocols, and ensure organisation. Right. So if they come into a random practice, then they'll get scattered. They need to have some structure there. But at the same time, in terms of attraction, in terms of when it comes to chiropractic, attraction here, what is the key thing for attraction relative to chiropractic? What is it and relative to your associates? What do they need to stick? Because remember, attraction is not only just coming in, it's staying too, So things will stay around, things that nurture and support them. So if we're attracting people in, what's going to allow them to stay? And it's not about retaining. Retention is used as force. Retention is holding back. So it's got to be constantly attractive. What is it within chiropractic, which I think is just so outstanding in terms of most professions, or comparison of most professions? What is it that remains attractive to us, or with us, and for our people? What do you think?
I'm trying to work out which end you're looking at this from, Mark. Are you talking in terms of outcomes and so on, client outcomes?
Even beyond that, what drives the outcomes?
Even beyond that, did you say?
You look at successful chiropractors and successful chiropractic practices, or successful businesses. They have something that the unsuccessful ones don't have. It's an unseen, but it's a rallying point that everyone comes around.
Well, they got
Sense
vision,
of
they got
community.
purpose, they got mission, and things like that.
Yep.
It's the thing that drives them. It's the thing that gets
Exactly.
them up in the morning every day.
Exactly. Right. So the purpose, the vision, the mission that then attracts the community around it. It's, in other words, it's the culture.
Yeah.
So when we create a culture, that's the attractive factor. That's the sticky thing that causes people to stay. They feel part of it. They feel as part of a tribe.
Absolutely. Yep.
And I think, for our longevity in an associate practice, we've got to have that really, really strong. Now, if we go back to this little diagram back in here somewhere, this one here, if we have a purpose or the culture that's like that, right? Just above where these two individuals are at. They're both about to go through it in different directions. But if they're working within the culture, within this area here, fancy, right? So that's the current purpose statement, but it's only as big as those two individuals, right? When they extend beyond that, then they'll want to go off in their own direction, right? So if we want to allow these people to stay with us, we're going to draw the culture, make the culture bigger, you see? So now they've got areas to grow into, even though they're different, they're going in different directions.
Yeah.
Imagine, I haven't got room on the page here now, but if we go bigger and bigger and bigger, it's going to be to the point where you've got, two little things like this, but the culture is like out there, you see? So they'll still work within the environment. So what we're going to do, if we're wanting people to stay with us or to stick with us for longer periods, because what happens is that an associate leaves our practice when they run out of future.
Right.
Let me say it again. It's just like they leave because there's no future, and our future is defined by our culture. So they need an ascension pathway. In other words, they need to be able to ascend, and this is what's set up here in this area here, purpose and culture. So it's constantly tweaking that. So think of spinning plates, right? So the right frontal is constantly expanding and looking at the new developments and the quantum field and the energetic fields and all that sort of stuff. At the same time, we've got all of our regulatory things handled. People feel safe and secure because all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. Right, so that then causes people to feel comfortable and nurtured within the business. The next area here is one of delivery. So this is where, as you were talking about there before, Michael, is that it's a technique. It's the communication. It's the connection. Sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, with regards to the picture, the purpose, the growing that extra circumference, essentially.
Yeah.
One of the things I've been thinking is that we sometimes have that as the owner deeply in ourselves, and we're doing it ourselves, but it's shown in little bits to maybe that associate, right? And what I've been wanting to do is make an infographic of a 5-year vision for an associate, right? With kind of the lines to success. Like what I would have done is the next step with the advertisement with the chair there, I then would have put the next picture was there's a seat for a chair. Now here's the picture of the podium. Okay.
Yeah, right.
You want to be a chiropractic champion, okay, and you stand on the champion. When you fill this seat, you get to go to being a champion. And then here's the infographic of the 5-year process of becoming a rock star associate and whatever, being empowered.
I like that.
Right?
Nice. Yeah, Michael, I agree.
And so that's what I've been saying to myself. Because I took this other coaching program one time, and it was the 3 or 5 year position to, to be, whatever, $1 million practice and have people underneath of you. And they mapped out then 7 stages for the first year, then the next 3 years, and the last 2 years of a 5-year plan to get to it, right? And I was like, I kind of think that would be a good thing, which has the steps. Because what's happening at you being a coach, who maybe keeps someone around for a 5-year season, what really is happening in the first year, and then the next 2 or 3 years, and the last 2 years, right? And a plan to kind of give them a vision of that, oh yeah, I am gaining this. And because then you see that whole nautical thing that you're going to, as opposed to just the blinker of the first year and the second year. It's like, okay, it's a 5-year thing to where they want to go. And if you say that up front, you might even attract that person better to be there for the 5 years of where you want to go. But it's actually a clear plan of these are the things that need to happen for this to be successful, right?
Yeah.
And reality is we're all trying to sort that out ourselves, some of us. I mean, that's where I've been. I've been trying to follow the darn plan myself.
Well, and my practice doesn't do well when when associates only last for a year. That confuses the patients. They seem like there's too much change happening in the practice, and to sell it like this is a 5-year plan, not just, hey, look how awesome this office is, seems like a really good initial sell.
Yeah. Well, we use that model of the journey, right? Which is a segmented plan going forward, and you might even look at that with your associates. There's their initial relief just getting out of de-educating them from their college education, and then again them the stabilization phase, and then there's a regenerative phase, and there's a growth and optimization phase, and so forth. So, as you say there, looking at it in a segmented way. I think the thing is that whilst it's useful to give people an idea of possibility, it's also very useful to have markers along the way in incremental levels.
Correct. That's what I'm referring to.
Yeah.
Exactly. Do that, and then this is what you're going to do. It's too much at once. They're overwhelmed. You're overwhelmed.
Yeah,
What
exactly.
you need to be able to do well in the first 2 years. Then, do you want to take it to the next level? You give them a 2-year contract, but you tell them a 5-year plan. Say, do you want to jump into the corrective phase, right, of being an associate? To correcting and mastering your skills, right, which is also you being able to take people to corrective care, right, and regenerative care. Right. And the next phase of, optimizing, a 5-year plan for them. Okay. Then it's the skills they need to start learning, better communication management skills, or more deeper marketing skills, or more, public speaking skills. I don't know, like whatever phases of it they need to know in the first few years, and then the next few years,
Right. Well, yeah. See,
read the innate model by this time, right? And perfect this in the innate model, by this time. Now take it to the next level in your management skills as a practitioner. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, so the purpose of this model is to look at stages of a sequential process. In other words, on anything, it'll be like, oh, I have an idea that I better tie my shoelaces. How do I do that? What are these for? Oh, yes, okay, fine, I can do that. Okay, now I can apply it because I know what shoelaces are and how they work. And now what else could I do? Oh, I could do a double knot, so this kicks back over here. I mean, it could be that granular. And what it does then is see us going through this journey in a progressive way. So if we look at it here with this model, it's sort of, this is going to be tricky. Okay, so we're going up this way as well. We're going through ascending pathways of development, right? As a person goes through this model like so. If this is like a sagittal view, look at the coronal section, and you'll get that. Right, so that we're either evolving or we're devolving.
Yeah.
Right. So we want our associates to evolve. Now, in order for that to occur, we have to have an evolved situation, and part of that is having that purpose bigger. Right. So people are drawn towards it. You see, so we get uplifted towards it in this ascension. So to just complete on this one then. It would be about taking this purpose and infusing it into the onboarding, for example, right? And then taking the purpose and infusing it into the trainings, and then but at the same time taking the purpose and putting it in the technique. You see, so what it does is with every purpose, with every procedure, there should be a purpose, and then the procedure, and then like maybe a script or so forth, so that you've got the purpose being infused in the whole system, right? And that's why you keep that big, and then you allow the small stuff, all the systems and the organization and so forth, to be infused in that, because then that brings the purpose into nurture. and then it brings it into delivery. And then we can expand with purpose, because this is a congruent expansion where we take it out into the world by reinventing, right? So we can then look at how you can make your practice work better, for example, make it work become a business. As I put in that opening slide here, have the associates driving it and running it, because you got the reason for it, you got the systems to do it, and then you've got the procedures that you're doing and the communication and connection you're doing that allows you to constantly reinvent and do things in a new way. And in many cases it's just about breaking it, and always look for, I would suggest every business is broken all the time. So you look for the breaks, and then you don't necessarily have to break it, but it will be broken somewhere, and then you flick it back across. It's like at the moment, our capacity is being tested because we've got such a big influx of practice members coming in. So now we've found breaks all over the place right now that we have to deal with, and those breaks normally show up as personal breaks. People get overloaded, people get cranky, people get short, gnarly, whatever it is. But it's not about, we're in the people business, right? And but it's not about the people. The systems are what drive the people, right? If a system breaks, a person will show it. The people are just like canaries in the coal mine. So just if we can recognize that, it's never a person problem. Edward Deming said this. We went to Japan after the war and had to rearrange their industrial complex. And he said that, I think it was like, I forget the exact figure, I think it was 90% of people problems are actually system problems, right? So being aware of this, then we can take our purpose and our culture, we put it into our systems, and we tweak our systems and test them over here with our application of the system. And then we reinvent the system up here. We reinvent it to a new possibility. Got it? So within that then, obviously within the quest process, we have a whole range. We've got a matrix of quadrants within quadrants within quadrants. And I'm not going to go into that, but there's like 64 different quadrants in this matrix. And when we look at the relationship of that, we've got the ones who have been speaking to here, which is your vision and your beliefs and your outcomes and your mission. Any of those are going to either increase or decrease your attraction. It's either going to cause develop your cause or detract from your cause. So if you've got beliefs that are negative or distracting from the higher good, then that's going to pull down the attractiveness, right? So if you've got a vision that's limited, as we talked before, we've got outcomes that aren't far-reaching to get people really excited, that's going to pull from the cause. So in other words, making sure that these are all intact. In fact, I might just ask you guys, where do you see, like of all those areas there, where do you see as your 2 or 3 greatest challenges? What areas would you identify?
Or you mean of the words on there?
In the practice, yeah. Where in your business, where are you light on in? What is it that your business needs some work in?
Mission.
Mission? Cool.
I guess need leverage. I need operations and organization still, in the sense that
leverage. Okay.
Leverage in the sense that I need, which comes with attraction, in the sense that like I think one of the things I've always said with an associate as well, you need to be having a business practice that's bringing in regular patients, right? Mm-hmm. So you can pass them on, and I'm just not leveraged that way. To do that, to understand that, if you've got the right intentions, that you're trying to train up a good chiropractor, yep, for the purposes of, you know, not just benefiting your practice, but having more good chiropractors out there, you need to be able to have that coming in.
Okay, all right. So we'll take leverage as being one of yours. Mission for you, Ginger. What about you, Neil? What do you see as your greatest challenge and greatest need in your business right now in the stage that you're in?
Probably repurposing, because just listening to what's been coming through and flowing through, I realize I have to probably kind of start that whole thing again in terms of, I thought I knew where I was headed, and I'm in a sort of maybe a unique situation in that I've done most of the things I've needed to do in chiro, and I'm just trying to set it up so that you know, I can just flow along and enjoy it without too much load, too much stress, and you know, having to do too much to motivate people. I'd like to have someone sort of join the practice and have fun being here, but I really don't want to have to put a vast amount of effort in, which I have done in the past, and realise how, as Michael sort of found out, how counterproductive it can be and how time and energy consuming it can be. Yep. So I just need to figure out a sort of different way forward that I suppose when I think about it, I haven't actually really got into the nitty gritty or even, you know, thought deeply enough about that sort of aspect.
Okay, so well, I put down vision initially, but maybe we'll put it over around mission, because I think, you know, mission's a really interesting thing in that we have a common word that we use when we recover from a you know, intractable condition or disease. We call it remission. And I think, you know, what keeps us going in life is remissioning. Now, it's actually triggered over in here, you know, that we've got the remission phases where we see something, we break it or it's already broken, and then we flick it over to here, and we design it in a new way. You know, so what is my mission going forward? Because at a different phase of our life, we have a different mission, and sometimes we don't take the time to actually redefine that. And some of the greatest discoveries, contributions, and you know, people in the world have been in their 70s, 80s, and 90s. You know, so that, you know, looking at what I've done all that stuff. Now what can I do? You know, what am I really here for? And so, you know, and I think this is something we've been really lacking from in society is respect for the elders, respect for, and not just respect because they're old. It's like the wisdom and the knowledge that they carry, and how can that be applied rather than us having to reinvent the wheel. And that's, I mean, I must admit, it's one of my drivers for doing what I do. It's just like, hey, I want to take this out because I know on my computer there is a shitload of stuff here that has worked really, really well, building millions upon millions of dollars in our businesses. And I just want to share it, you know, I just want to get out. So that's my mission. I mean, you know, sure, I want to be paid for it, but I want to have an exchange, but that's not the driver. You know, it's like, hey, if I could get out there and some young buck can pick it up and run with it and save themselves 20 years of their life, boy, that'd be really cool. So in other words,
well, and I'm in that place. I'm running with a practice that's been beautiful for 30 years before I ever joined it. But we never really defined our mission.
Right.
And it's a beautiful, amazing practice, but we don't really have a mission.
Cool. All right. Well, these are tasks, right? Obviously, we're setting up a task. So David, what do you see in this model that you are lacking in the practice? Like the practice could really do with a makeover in this area.
I think my biggest challenge with associates has always been about getting my success to translate to their success. And so it's like you've talked about in the past about getting your technique package to be like more consistent. And so there's that, and then it's the kind of like the, I guess it's energetic input. I don't know where that comes under in terms of like if everybody had the energetic input of them to have, then all the systems would be beautiful, you know, like
Yeah. Well,
that's, but I'm not sure what you see that as, but I
yeah.
guess delivery, yeah.
Well, yeah, energy is what we bring our vision to through the organization we have. So yeah, so definitely energetic energy is a critical component. I mean, it can come in design, like designing your delivery system, and maybe that's an area that you want to look at. And it could be the actual delivery, and possibly the engagement. I don't know, that, you know, that's more personal thing. So I would say probably design, in that you design where you want people to go, what journey you want to take them on, how you want to get them there, and the state control that's required for that to occur. You know, the state of the art, and that goes into the aesthetics, it goes into the music, it goes into the forms, it goes into every aspect of the practice.
Yeah. Are you talking about for the associate more than the?
Well, it's more the whole itself, really, because it's the associate, but it's also the you know, the business itself. So you work on the business in terms of design rather than, you know, the hands-on delivery maybe, which is a bit smaller. The design is the overriding part, so it sort of comes around this way. So you get the design, then you got to look at the tactics, and then look at the delivery method, and then you look at the engagement. Right, so in this one here, it comes this way, right? The organisation, then the knowledge, then the operations, and the strategy. And this one comes this way, and this one here comes this way.
So where does the ascension pathway for the associates fit into this as well?
That's really, yes, all of it. In terms of the associate has a design, or you'd create a design for the associate to follow a pathway from nailing this for themselves, then getting some order. Let's make it smaller. Then there's some order, then bring meaning to what they're doing. Because you find a lot of associates just don't have the meaning there. They don't have a meaning behind what they're doing. And then recognizing that they're creating impact. Now, impact then is leveraged out once again as you go up those ascending pathways, right? Impact becomes, like say, there's impact there. Then there's contribution up here. You know, and maybe, you know, for many of us, we're wanting contribution. We know we've got impact, you know, and somewhere along the way here is money and you know, and skill and etc. Okay, so does that make sense, David? So it's like, you know, taking them through their cause and where they're at. You know, it's just owning where they're at. And maybe their beliefs are, I'm an idiot, I'm hopeless, you know, I don't deserve to be responsible for someone else's care or whatever, you know. So there's all sorts of hidden beliefs there that will hold a person back from even creating a mission, you know. That's why they call it remission. Oh, I'm too old, I'm too young, I'm too this, I'm too that, you know. No.
So in terms of this model, like the thing that will happen for me often with people is they'll grow a lot, they get to a certain point, they'll be doing well, and it's like I've either got to really push them to break through heaps of barriers that they're holding for themselves, like belief wise and life design wise and so on, because it's the be do have, you know, to get busier and all of that sort of stuff beyond a certain point. And I bring these things up and I put them out there, but I don't want them more than they want it for themselves, in the sense that want it more than they want it for themselves, but I don't push it more than they push it for themselves. Put it that way. And that's I'm wondering where on this is I guess it's in all of it, I suppose, isn't it? But
it's actually
just in terms of understanding this is kind of where we get, and then it's kind of like and then the few that that will kind of get pretty close, then it's like, well, either let them buy in at that point or they buy out, or and they do that and then they push themselves harder still, and you're like, you knew that they had it all in them, and all those seeds you planted get to sprout when they finally have to be under the pump and pay their own bills, and they're not so comfortable anymore, and they have to go sink or swim. You know what I mean? I think so much comfort for the associate to be able to earn well without trying that hard, that it can actually shoot me in the foot.
Yeah, I mean, there's a push-pull thing, but I think that if you can set up this vision bigger, like the purpose here is bigger, then it tends to elevate people. You know, wow, I'm part of this. Now, also what it can do is to spit them out. You know, if it gets too big or too out of their reality, then they can get spit out. And that's actually, Michael's gone now, but if it's watching this replay, that is one of the challenges here of setting this frame like that by going into a newbie and saying this is the possibilities. It's like going to a 2-year-old and saying, you know, oh, you're going to be you'll be an incredible chiropractor. They just don't have a reality on it. Now, if you take them little bit by little bit, you'll actually grow that person through into that. But you've got to own the whole thing first, right? So your vision's got to be bigger than their vision at all times, and the practice's vision's got to be way bigger than all of your visions. And that's why you get their buy-in to the practice vision always. You know, so you create it together.
I guess people get outgrow, like assume, you know, as a practice, you're always kind of evolving and growing as well, like as a principal and as a practice, trying to get closer to that vision, which obviously you never completely reach. And I guess you can outgrow associates as well in that respect, or they can say, hey, I'm actually not wanting to keep coming along to ascend to that level. That's not my vision for myself right now. And
totally, and they deselect that, and that's where they come in for a reason, or season, you know, and that's why it's up to us. We're either growing or we're dying, you know. It's we can't be in both, you know. So we're in protection when we're dying, or we're in growth and we evolve. So that's the nature. That's a form of nature. I think this is what's so nice about this brain-based model of practice, is that it replicates nature. It's simply looking at how it is within a vitalistic system, with the junction of or the joining of the right brain and left brain together, to allow for that growth, and yet the solidification that can take place to seal it, to allow it to go to the next level. You know, like if a tree was all growth and no consolidation, they'd just be falling over because it wouldn't build in the matrix to hold itself into that new position. So, you know, we've got to have that sap running and keep all the juices going. At the same time, we've got to build bigger vessels and bigger carriers of that information, and sorting that information, storing it, and bigger root systems to then support all the foliage or you know, all the growth that we're creating. And that's why, you know, when we put a system under pressure, we're going to find out where we haven't accommodated for it. And it's, you know, that's our next job. So yeah, so that, I mean, that's what's so amazing about an associate practice. In my viewpoint, we learn so much about ourselves. We learn so much about human nature and how our brains work. And, you know, with the innate model, I think it's a great contribution to chiropractic management, because it's in the chiropractic vein of vitalistic and mechanistic infusion. You know, it's not vitalistic by itself, and it's not mechanistic by itself. It's bringing them both together, and just like our brain does, it interacts and works as one. And we can have our practices going like that. That then doesn't bring hardship for anyone. You know, and
I've been thinking a lot lately about how the nervous system works on both energetic levels and on chemical levels, and how light also works on chemical and energetic levels, and how the nerves are actually a lot like light.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
go ahead.
Are you familiar with the Niels Bohr Institute in Stockholm that's done the research on solution?
No.
Okay, what they're saying is that the nerve pathways or nerve conduction is actually sound. It's and it's not
And sound does the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's that energy, that wave vibration, and that's why you can pass the same to pass an impulse down an axon in two different directions, and it just keeps going. And after it's passed, it leaves the action potential. So it's not the action potential that creates the impulse.
It's the result. Yeah. I love that.
Interesting. So yeah. But yeah, no, that's true. I mean, yeah, there's so much in nature that we can use within our business. Well, in fact, I would suggest that every advance that human beings have ever made is there in nature already. So, you know, it's not rocket science. We just look at what nature does and then say, oh, that's pretty cool. You know, I mean, I was watching some birds the other day, and it's like, I don't recall seeing birds like I see birds now in terms of their the wingtips go up. And yet the airplanes now, only in the last, 10, 15 years, have been having wings.
They tip them up,
Whereas birds have had that all along. You know, birds, you just watch, you know, a decent-sized bird, they're going to have a wingtip that goes up. Or like little swallows on the golf course the other day, they've got these little swallow tails, and they can turn on a dime. They can go really, really fast, and they just go left or right-hand turn and snap a little insect out of the air. And you know, that, look at surfboard design. I mean, surfboard design are the fastest turning surfboards are the ones with the swallow tips, you know. So
and skis.
Yeah. Skis, exactly.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. No, that's cool. Well, better sign off. You know, we did put this for an hour, so I'll sign over here. But look, if you're watching this and you want more information or you want to have a chat, I'm very happy just to get on a call with you. So just send us an email and say chat on Associate, and we can have a longer discussion if needs be. And for those of you who rocked up here, thank you so much for being here. I must admit we didn't get through all the questions that have been asked from those who weren't on the call. So if your question wasn't asked, then call us up and we can have a quick chat. All right. Thanks a lot. And
thanks, Mark.
We'll catch up with you again very soon.
All right. Cheers.
Okay.
Bye, y'all.
All right.
Yep. See you, Mark.
Bye.
See you. Thanks. Bye.